Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you today at the International Human Fraternity Summit. My name is Antonio Zappula, and I'm CEO at the Thomson Reuters Foundation. Thank you for joining us for this panel that wants to explore practical ways in which we can foster a culture of tolerance and peace. I'm very grateful to His Highness Sheikh Nahyan Mubarak Al Nahyan, the UAE cabinet member and Minister of Tolerance and Coexistence, for this very kind invitation. Tolerance and peace are concepts that have never been more relevant. This time last year, news of a deadly virus spreading across central China began to emerge, and none of us could have predicted the utter devastation that this virus would have had on humanity. None of us could have predicted how many lives would be lost. And of course, none of us could have predicted how this pandemic would become the nexus for other global crises, from economic meltdown to climate emergencies to an education crisis. Quite simply, we're living in a very different world than where we were exactly 12 months ago. Little mobility, new risks, and a world that risks becoming more divided and unequal. And put practically, this means that concepts such as tolerance and peace are becoming even more central to our development as people who navigate the challenges of a post-pandemic world. Collaboration has never been more crucial. The pandemic has highlighted how global issues must be tackled collectively if we stand the chance of finding meaningful solutions. Collective leadership is needed now more than ever. According to the World Bank, extreme poverty has risen for the first time in 20 years, pushing an additional 150 million people into living on less than $2 a day. More than half of those people are women and girls. The most vulnerable are those who have been hit the most by this economic fallout. The virus has laid bare the frailty of our social contract. This year, we saw with our own eyes how healthcare and welfare systems have been struggling. And from our balconies and windows, we clapped at underpaid healthcare workers, not at overpaid influencers and celebrities. And wealth means advancing riches of all kinds. And so this pandemic can be a defining moment, a moment to embrace green growth, to redefine public-private partnerships, to create sustainable cities, to invest in education, and to foster, of course, tolerance and coexistence. And so many of the issues that we are touching on today are very relevant to the work of the Thomson Reuters Foundation, which uses its unique combination of journalism and legal skills to drive systemic change for the most vulnerable and marginalized people on the globe. The foundation works to advance media freedom, to foster more inclusive economies, and to promote human rights through our news coverage, through media development interventions, through facilitating free legal assistance, and through our convening initiatives. And here's where collaboration is central to our approach too. We work with legal practitioners, civil society, policymakers, journalists, and the private sector with the aim of combating modern slavery, foster fair and sustainable economic and business models, and raising awareness of the impact of technology on people, society, and freedoms, our inclusive economy focus. Our media freedom work relies on expertise in delivering global media development interventions to strengthen the journalism ecosystem, and in doing so, the free flow of independent and accurate information, which is so important in fostering a culture of peace and tolerance. We do this through our established network of media professionals, policy experts, and journalist alumni. Our experience of working alongside global partners give us unparalleled reach and places at the center of the international expertise. And finally, we raise awareness of human rights issues around the world via our news coverage and by training local journalists to report accurately on these issues, as well as facilitating global assistance and research to support frontline human rights organizations driving collaboration to advance these rights. Which brings us neatly to the topic of working together to achieve a better future. So on today's panel, I'm joined by a terrific lineup of distinguished speakers. We have Hani Al-Zubaidi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Make-A-Wish Foundation. We have Dr. Isa Mohammed Bastaki, who's President of the University of Dubai. We have Youssef Aroug, who's the co-founder and president of the Mediterranean Youth Foundation for Development. And we have Dr. Sidra Tariq Jamil, communication expert at the Department of Dialogue and Cultural Diversity at the Islamic World Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, ISESCO. So, welcome. I'm really excited to be here talking to you today. And I would like to start from Dr. Isa Mohammed. Dr. Isa, multiculturalism, tolerance, and peace can only be achieved if we, as people, are able to embrace them with our practical daily actions. And this, of course, might require the creation of frameworks that can facilitate specific behaviors, approaches, and educate society. What role is the University of Dubai playing in ensuring that human fraternity can then be achieved universally? I think you are on mute.
First of all, thank you very much, Sir Antonio. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you who are listening to this webinar. I think it's a very good opportunity to talk about what is University of Dubai doing in this era of many atrocities in the world, and what is UAE doing and what is the university doing to actually build a very friendly environment that will invite every gender, every race, every society, every nationality in this very beautiful pot of tolerance. If I look at the question, it's a very deep one. Before I start, I'd like to talk about human being, or maybe human capital. What is the country of UAE doing about human capital? The late Allah Rahmah Sheikh Zayed, the founder of our nation, said it beautifully. He said that the most important advice I give to my children is to stay away from arrogance. And my belief that the big and the great do not make him small and do not weaken him to be humble and tolerant people. Because tolerance among human beings leads to compassion, because man must be merciful and happy with his fellow man. I'm trying to say here right now is that, first of all, he was talking about a man, a human being, not an Emirati. So this is a message to the world. He even said that the state gives priority to building human beings and caring for citizens everywhere in the country, and that the citizen is the real wealth on this land. But the other one, he says, real wealth is in the wealth of men, not of wealth of oil, because without men means general human being. So the country cares about human beings. Now, in terms of tolerance, also His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Rashid Al Maktoum, the Vice President, Prime Minister, and ruler of Dubai, said it: tolerance and the UAE are two sides of the same coin. It will remain a homeland of tolerance, model, and role model in conscious openness, in a sense that we actually deal with every human being the same as we deal with other human beings. There is no difference. This is where the real humanity comes into being. And if I look at, even in the pandemic time, till now we are in that pandemic time, the coronavirus, COVID-19, Sheikh Mohammed Rashid said one thing which was very important regarding education. Now I'm going to education, is that the schools will close, but the education will continue. The universities will close, but education will continue. So in terms of buildings, they may close, but education will continue to go on. And this is where the power of this kind of educational foundation of the country. Now, University of Dubai is a very small example of this nation which cares about the people. So in University of Dubai, we are doing so many things. We have UD Code of Values and Code of Ethics. We also have some courses, like the concepts of peace and tolerance are discussed in 4 of our general undergraduate curriculum requirements, such as Islamic studies, Emirati studies, communication skills, and critical thinking. And one course in BBA, which is a bachelor's degree in business administration, is called business ethics. We have also something called UD Happiness Roadshow in schools. So we go to spread the happiness around the school students, to show them why we become happy, depending how you relate to the people. And of course, the UD Code of Values and Code of Ethics encourage UD society to work in peace and tolerate other cultures. So if you look at it, what is the Code of Values now? We're talking about now policies, right? Responsibility and cooperation. So it's a peaceful and purposeful community founded on a moral and ethical integrity of members of the whole UD. UD means University of Dubai, UD community. And then we have intrinsic value, respect for the other members and the appreciation of different cultural backgrounds, understanding the attitudes, the opinions, anything that's got to do, and then the awareness of the consequences of actions on the broader community. We have many activities that we do that. Self-discipline, personal responsibility, and individual's need for physical, intellectual, social, and emotional wholeness is a big part of the whole environment of the UD community. UD, I mean University of Dubai. Each time I call UD, easier to say. And then we have integrity, a campus community that encourages personal growth and academic development in an atmosphere of positive character influence. We always look at any incident as a positive thing. That means either it should be an opportunity or it could be something that can be fixed to a better. So you always look at it in terms of positivity. And then we have the personal growth, the academic development, which is integrity. Then we talk about accountability. There's no difference between anybody else. It's the policy that says you are accountable for what you don't do, and you are accountable for your actions. And this is what will drive us to the future. Of course, and then the community authority. Privileges and responsibilities as members of the UD community. The UD community shall value the standards of conduct expressed in the enforcement and fair administration. So you underline the word enforcement, you underline the word administration, fair administration. According to policy, policies are all equal. No difference between any other policy. Then we go into Code of Ethics. Code of Ethics, we have three divisions. One is responsibility, to know the difference between choices and outcomes. Evaluating short versus long-term consequences and accepting those consequences without justifying actions or blaming others to escape sanctions and accountability. Oh, something and or accountability. Fairness, second one. Respect for the individual and commitment to equal opportunity in a diverse society. A student came to my office once and there was something between me and him. I was talking to him. I was pointing my finger without noticing. I realized he was not happy. He told somebody that I pointed out my finger. I shouldn't do it. I called him the next day. I told him, I am very sorry because what I did, I didn't understand. I didn't feel, couldn't see myself. I didn't have a mirror of myself. You taught me a new thing today that I shouldn't point out fingers to anybody else. I'm sorry, I learned a new thing. This is how the respect is of the individual. Support for the freedoms of religion, of the press, of speech, and the right of assembly. We have a place for Muslim prayers. We have a place for interfaith prayers. So I mean, any faith can actually practice their faith in the University of Dubai. Believe that individual rights and privileges are to be exercised reasonably, especially with respect to others. Conviction that no one is above the law. No one is above the law. And this is known by our leaders. Leaders say we are the first people to abide by the law and respect the law. So once the people see the leaders are respecting the law, they will respect the law. Nobody's above the law. And the third one of the ethics is civility, to honor others' viewpoints and solve problems without creating greater ones. You always have to be civil. Try to deal with people with respect. Try to talk to them in a good sense. Try to do loving sense. Try to always smile when you're talking to other people. Try to always listen to them and wait until they finish this. They talk and then you can respond. So all these together builds the civility in the University of Dubai. So I think when I talk about the way University of Dubai is built in terms of people, the human capital, is we care about human capital and we make them happy. Once we make them happy, they produce more than they are required to do. So this shows that how powerful is when you talk about tolerance and peace.
Dr. Isa, thank you for these very practical examples, which are really rooted into your framework, which is really encompassing and very powerful. I have just a quick follow-up question for you. We don't have much time for this answer, so I'll ask you to be a little bit shorter on this one. But you mentioned something really interesting earlier. You said schools are closed, but education continues. And I know you're passionate about the role of technology. It's part of who you are and your great and distinguished career. And I wonder, how do you see this digital divide, and whether you see it as a risk factor that in fact can deepen inequalities? And we've seen it obviously in the field of education, which is the one that you represent here on the panel today. How can we prevent this digital divide to become a new global problem that is clearly arising ahead of us?
Actually, I had only one sentence, the last one, just one sentence. It was it. I had finished, actually. The sentence I want to say is that that's why University of Dubai has progressed so rapidly that no other university has done it because of this environment. So now regarding the technology, this is a very dear to my heart. I am a technologist and I am an advocate of technology. First of all, digital divide is normal if you're talking about different generations. We always had differences between generations, but still they live together well. So the problem is if you have digital divide within the generation, that's where we need to take care of it. Otherwise, we'll create a gap, big gap, that the world will not adjust and grow as it's supposed to. Maybe one country will grow, the other won't, and they affect each other at the end. So we are at the end one globe, one world. So if you look at technology, every technology deals with all kinds of humanities, and especially touches the human beings in all senses. If you look at blockchain, you look at Internet of Things, especially Internet of Things, the wearables, these are all part of that, the new way of living. And you look at the big data, robotics, what are the humanoids going to do in the future? And they talk about artificial intelligence. How can we deal with it? How can we deal with tolerance in terms of artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality? Then we talk about nanotechnology, we talk about biotechnology, we talk about cloud computing, we talk about 3D printing, and then this is all elements of the fourth industrial revolution I'm talking about. And the last but not the least is the green economy. We have now World Green Economy Organization, which is headquartered in Dubai. It's talking about future jobs in green jobs they're talking about. So the digital divide will help what the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid is doing in Mohammed bin Rashid International Global Initiatives, helping the countries to bridge that gap that's available so that we can live in harmony together. This is what we need to work, go that extra mile to make sure that there's no digital divide around the world. Technology is unbiased. It's never biased technology. There's no discrimination in race, in color, in gender, no nationality. There's no hatred. There's no belittling, demeaning. It's not there completely. No animosity. No disrespect.
Dr. Isa,
yes.
Thank you for these powerful words. We need to move on. Unfortunately, time is not.
Can I give one more word? One more word
yes.
only?
Yes.
But at the end, technology is unbiased, but can be biased through the programmer's mindset. So yes, it can be biased. Then I may talk later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Isa. Moving on to Yusuf. Yusuf, your organization focuses on strengthening the relationship between the countries located along the Mediterranean coast. And this is by promoting cultural, social cooperation. I want to talk about migration with you because this is, of course, a phenomenon that we've seen all in the news. And it's one that, unfortunately, has often exploited and has been exploited to foster nationalism and xenophobia. And of course, we know that at a time of economic hardship, these narratives are very easy to exploit again. How can we break this cycle? And what role does the youth play in breaking this vicious cycle?
Thanks a lot for your kind introduction in the beginning. Actually, I'm pleased to take part in this historical summit and honored to speak in this session with insightful and impactful speakers from different backgrounds and countries. Getting back to your question about migration in the Mediterranean, actually, migration in the South Mediterranean region is not a phenomenon we have seen in the news, but a phenomenon that exists in our region, and we live it and are directly and indirectly affected by it. We lost our families and friends in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. They were looking for a new opportunity for life. How can we break this cycle? Actually, from my side, I do believe that we urgently in need to a new mutual media discourse that builds its policy according or to build its policy from the principles of the human fraternity document. Also, policies and laws are in the forefront of actions that can take that we need to take. I'm not here talking about legislation or new laws to be conducted, but I'm talking about the implementation of the already existing ones, even in the European Union or the United Nations. I'm talking here about political commitment. Thanks for asking about the role of youth. How can they break this cycle you mentioned? Of course, we as young people can play a vital role in this matter, and I can quickly share with you 4 rules young people could play in this matter. The first rule: young people can lead youth initiatives to raise awareness of the dangers of migration, as well as provide support to families of the missing and affected groups. Rule number 2: young people can advocate for this case and highlight it in their local communities. Rule number 3: considering that young people themselves are the most majority groups, they can contribute to reducing the migration rates and thus reducing the rates of missing and affected people. Rule number 4: the document we are celebrating its memory today, it's an idea was proposed by a young Egyptian Arab Muslim named Chancellor Mohammed Abdel Salam, the General Secretary of the Human Fraternity document. And it was developed in cooperation with a young man named Yohannes Lahzi. You might be surprised if I told you that he is also a young Egyptian Arab Coptic man. This is the biggest proof that youth can play a vital role in achieving peace on one hand and achieving the goals of the document on the other hand.
Yusuf, let's stick to the Mediterranean region because it's obviously the focus of your work in your foundation. The region has a strong history of commerce, of tolerance, but also coexistence. And I was personally born in Catania, in Sicily, so no very far. And Frederick II, back in 1198, was already speaking German, Greek, Latin, and Arabic, and was really able to foster a culture of tolerance, artistic, religious freedom, promoting multiculturalism and pluralism at the heart of the Mediterranean region. So clearly in the past, we got this right. Can you share some best advice, best practice in order for us to move forward and really develop synergies that are based on tolerance for the Mediterranean region?
Okay, thanks a lot for this very important question. Firstly, I would like to point out an important matter. We, as an Arab region, are part of the Mediterranean, a region that searches for peace every time and every day. And if we look at the UN resolution 2020-50 related to youth, peace and security issued in 2015, we will find that it came with an Arab initiative from the sisterly state of Jordan. And if we look at the Human Fraternity document, we also will find it as an Arab initiative by the Arab Republic of Egypt in cooperation with Italy. So Jordan is a member of the Union of the Mediterranean, and Italy as well, and also Egypt. So we as a Mediterranean countries, we offered many initiatives. We can consider them as a best practices. The Human Fraternity document is the most important document in the new century. So this is a good practice, but the problem or the challenge is not in the good practices we are looking for, or to exchange the good practices between different regions in the world, but it's about how we can support NGOs, private sector, how we can engage all human beings in this universe to create the peaceful society we are looking for. Here I can share with you our institutional experience at Mediterranean Youth Foundation. Last October, with the support of CAICID, Center Dialogue in Vienna, we launched the first dialogue on the Human Fraternity document. We were able to engage more than 79 participants from different countries, from the different cities in Egypt, and we held 3 dialogue sessions with policy makers and influencers and some politicians. Also, we were able to empower young people to empower, so they can empower their colleagues by supporting them how to create or how to transfer their ideas from ideas into actions. And now we have 3 social initiatives led by youth implementing, one in the Upper Egypt, another one in Calliopeia, the third one in Sinai. Through these practices, we can reach the local communities. We are in a big summit with insightful and impactful speakers, but still people in the borders, we have more than 3 billion and 50 young people leaving the borders, according to Open Front researches. How we can reach these young people? By youth organizations, international NGOs, private sector to support and to finance them, and the ministries of youth, ministries of tolerance, like the United Arab Emirates. Together, we can achieve peace. And the last thing I want to share here, we need to think about what the word of peace, what the word of human fraternity means to each one of us. For me, as a young person who was born and grew up in a desert, in the desert of Sinai, peace for me is the absence of war. Because last 10 years, I witnessed like a civil war in my native city, Al Arish, North Sinai. So peace for me is the negative meaning of peace is just the absence of war. But I'm sure that's not the peace we need to achieve. We need sustainable peace. We need to be ambitious about to create the tolerance communities we want to live in. And actually, I'm super I'm super impressed. I'm super excited about what the United Arab Emirates are doing, from Brahim family or other initiatives they are leading in their country.
Very good, strong personal point from Youssef about peace, obviously being much more than the absence of war. Thank you for those strong words. I can see Dr. Sidra now, who's joining us as well, and from ISESCO. ISESCO is one of the largest Islamic organizations, and its objectives include strengthening cooperation among its 54 member states, and also encouraging diversity, dialogue and understanding among diverse peoples as part of a contribution towards world peace and security. We were briefly discussing earlier with Dr. Isa Mohammed the crucial role that education plays in fostering tolerance and coexistence, especially in the UAE, obviously, given that we are virtually meeting in the UAE today. And looking at the role of ISESCO and its goals towards achieving sustainable development, it's clear that education plays a key role. But Dr. Sidra, how do we bolster educational systems at a time when the COVID crisis has created new barriers in terms of accessing education? Because UNESCO data shows us that 94% of the world's student population has been affected by the closure of educational institutions since the outbreak of the pandemic. How do we prevent education not falling victim of COVID-19 and therefore derailing these very important efforts that we're discussing here today towards peace and tolerance?
First of all, I would like to say good morning to all of you. As we are in the different time zones, we are in Morocco and it's 12 p.m. here. So I would like to add some point that I have prepared a speech before giving answer to your question. So should I present it first and as you suggest?
We have limited time for obviously this panel. We only have, I think, 20 minutes left. So if you don't mind, I would say you maybe just go straight to the answer. And
Perfect.
then if we gain some more time, we'll give you the opportunity to also highlight some of your remarks.
Okay, first of all, I'll talk about ISISCO, that it is one of the largest Islamic organizations and its objectives include strengthening cooperation among its 54 member states and encouraging diversity, dialogue, understanding among diverse people as part of a contribution towards world peace and security. So we are, as we were briefly discussing earlier with Dr. Isa Muhammad, the crucial role education plays in fostering tolerance and coexistence here in the UAE. So looking at the role of ISISCO and its goals towards achieving sustainable development, it is clear that education plays an important role, a key role, I must say. But how do we bolster educational system at a time when the COVID crisis has created new barriers in terms of access to education? So as we know, the COVID-19 has resulted in schools shut all across the world. Globally, over 1.2 billion children are out of the classroom. And the education has changed dramatically with the remarkable rise of e-learning, whereby teaching is undertaken remotely on digital platforms. So research suggests that online learning has been shown to increase information retention and take less time, meaning the changes COVID-19 has caused might be here to stay. So even before COVID-19, there was already high growth and adoption in education technology, increasing global education technology investments. So I believe that the integration of information technology in education will be further accelerated and that online education will eventually become an integral component of school education. As per ISESCO's efforts in this direction, uh, ISESCO launched ISESCO Digital Home, which is an initiative that aims to support the efforts deployed by the member states. We have 54 member states and the international community as a whole to counter this pandemic by proposing the best solutions to address the current and emergency circumstances. It provides the most efficient and flexible state-of-the-art technologies that can work under lockdown situations and address its repercussions on education, science, and culture, because we mainly deals with science and technology, culture, and education. So ISESCO Digital Home Initiative includes a variety of integrated measures of immediate field support through modern technological means to include workable communication tools and comprehensive digital contents, which are the number one comprehensive digital content I would like to share is setting up the number of open knowledge tools consisting of students' latest software applications in schools, higher education institutions, universities, researchers, and digital learning content developers. These tools also include pedagogical guides for all levels, multidisciplinary interactive learning content for students of different age categories, general knowledge, cultural industries, and intellectual content. We also provide visitors with an interactive platform for communicating and exchanging creative and innovative products. This platform includes engaging content for raising awareness about the protection against the COVID-19, drawing on the instructions and guidelines as advised by some specialists. This platform caters to all its visitors of different age groups and various specialities. The launching of this digital platform provides educational, cultural, scientific, and technological content, and that aims to qualify parents and enhance their skills in promoting their roles in the family, educate their children on positive and constructive values. So, to prevent the educational crisis from degenerating into a disaster for an entire generation, all the players concerned must act togetherly. This is my suggestion, as quickly as possible, because education is not just a fundamental human right. It is a right that the realization of which directly affects the exercise of all other rights. A global common good contributes to the successful implementation of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and its foundations of peaceful, just, equal, and inclusive societies. When education systems collapse, peace, prosperity, and the functioning of institutions are no longer assured. So to mitigate the potentially devastating consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the first thing for countries to do is to stop the transmission of the virus and to control the pandemic nationally, locally. Once they are successful, I think goals should be set. So one of the main conditions to be met is to ensure a safe return to the premises. Reopening plans must consider that the needs of the most marginalized children, appropriate health rules must be defined for students with special needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sidra, for giving the broader context of the role of education in strengthening the SDGs and especially sustainable, strong institutions in fostering, obviously, peace and tolerance. You touched on the importance of multiculturalism and obviously tolerance. And we know that multiculturalism and coexistence are core Emirati values. And I want to turn to Dr. Hani. One of the things I was particularly impressed during my very first visit to the UAE, which was almost 20 years ago now, was this ability to successfully bring together the civilization from the East and the West, and this very open, strong, firm rebuttal of extremism, intolerance, and hatred. Are tolerance and coexistence, Dr. Hani, the new soft power?
First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm so happy to be in this panel with those great minds, and especially you, Mr. Antonio. And the UAE is concerned with building the human beings, respecting others, regardless of, color or religious or race. And we are proud of the culture of tolerance that, represents the Emirati human heritage, firmly in according with the finest humanitarian principle, considering and the solid basic of society, full with happiness, love, brotherhood, harmony, according to each other. I would like here just to point out that the vocabularies of love, peace, openness, existence have constituted major component in the approach of the multiculturalism of the UAE since it started. And the country has become, let's say, the hub of tolerance, peace, safety, and it also the land of more than 200 nationalities living in the country, in the society, in peace, in harmony, respecting each other in one land, far away from the violence and the hatred, and become a global country where the civilization of East and West promote peace, rub between people, and this made the distinction between different countries of the world, regardless of the color, race, as well as religious. The declaration of His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed, the President of United Arab Emirates in 2019, to have it the year of tolerance, that was a history and legacy. And it was also, I believe, a wisdom And that give us more, let's say, show more tolerance to the world, especially since we are following the guidelines of the father, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, may God rest his soul in peace. There are a picture, okay, or there is no picture in the world of the depth of concept tolerance in the UAE from the state allocate a ministry of tolerance in February 2016. Establishing tolerance as a basic, value society as the new ministry, support the state decision toward, of the value of tolerance, to accept the others intellectually, partially, religiously, and convert the message to the whole world. The Ministry of Tolerance plays the key, okay, in the role of production, the knowledge to the tolerance in the UAE to the whole world. As an organization, okay, of community activities and activity which they empower the concept of tolerance coexistence in the real life. The ministry also concerned the role of culture coexistence in the tolerance in the world, and also reflect the Arab Islamic civilization to the whole world, according to the peace. And finally, the brilliance of the true Islam has made this diversity a creative of positive force. The ministry is part of a successful journey of the UAE, which consider tolerance and culture exchange an important part of the UAE, relation with the other countries, and it is an essential aspect of the UAE soft power in the world.
Very good point then about soft power, and this being obviously an element of soft power, which is, I think, is a really interesting way of looking at it. Hani, you also on your daily job, your day job, you're the CEO of a very important organization which is called the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Is based in your case in the UAE. Could you tell us more about what this foundation does?
Make-A-Wish Foundation is a non-profit organization. Maybe most of you know it's an international NGOs. It's operates in many countries in the world. One of them is the UAE. In the UAE, we started in 2010. It was one of the initiatives of wife of His Highness Sheikh Dr. Sultan bin Khalifa Al Nahyan, advisor to His Highness President of the country, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed. She's the person who created here at the beginning. And we are care of one thing and one thing only, which is grant wishes for children who are suffering from life-threatening medical conditions by spreading joy and happiness into their hearts with their family's member. At the foundation, we try to give hope and strength to those children. And based, on our experience, it helps a lot, at what we call it, the treatment journey. So far, the foundation, since it started, it grants more than 4,600 wishes within the region. And along with Make-A-Wish International, we also grant hundreds of thousands of wishes to children from all over the world. We are happy that this foundation grant wishes to children from different religious, different nationalities within the country. So far, we grant wishes to around to children from 66 nationalities who are living in the country, giving them hope, strength, and joy. And since it started as well, the foundation was, let's say, one of the model leading, NGOs that really focus on the model of giving hope and strength to those children, regardless of their background, their religious, and their nationalities.
And Hani, if anybody wants to support the Make-A-Wish Foundation practically, what can they do?
Well, there is a lot of ways to support the foundation. They can come to our, for example, social media, Make-A-Wish UAE, or they can go to our website, makeawish.ae, or even they can write to us at info@makeawish.ae. And we are open to all kind of support, whether is it money support, whether is it idea support, voluntary, any idea will help those children to grant their wishes. And if I may just add that, all the wishes for the children's, it may come under 4 categories. Either I wish to go, it can be for any person to go to any place in the world. For example, we have a lot of kids, they wish to go to Disneyland, for example, to see Snow White, or to have, this breakfast with this Princess Bella, or maybe I wish to meet. We have a lot of children who meet a lot of, international celebrities like wrestler John Cena. We have a lot of them meet Real Madrid players. We don't have anybody from Barcelona. I'm sorry about that. Or it can be any celebrity around the world. The third category is I wish to be, where they can be a princess for a day, a firefighter, a doctor, or for example, I wish to have, it can be anything starting from Barbie doll, ending up with, full bedroom furniture or anything in their mind.
It's really.
Antonio, we will send them an email to see how we can cooperate between Make-A-Wish Foundation and Mediterranean Youth Foundation. Let's
That's
network.
terrific. That's the whole point of having events such as this one. Even
you
if
want to go to Real Madrid, that's why Real Madrid.
Yes.
I'm not a football fan, so I'm not getting involved very happily in this conversation that we will derail tolerance completely. So we're not gonna even get there. But listen, it's been fantastic to talk to all of you. A few things that I picked up during this conversation, obviously talking to Dr. Isa, we really learned about how pragmatic frameworks are really helping in starting from somewhere. You need to have a framework if you want to translate this big concept and ideas into practical, tangible actions that everybody with their daily activities every day can really start taking forward. Because often without a framework, we risk to fail at doing that, because this concept will remain very isolated and very theoretic. So we want to find practical, tangible ways to take these concepts forward. And thank you, Dr. Isa, for sharing some of the practical frameworks of the University of Dubai. We also touched on the role of technology. And you rightly said technology doesn't discriminate, but the bias is in the human, in the people behind those algorithms. And this is definitely a topic that is not going to go away anytime soon. We then also spoke to Yusuf, and we were talking about the important role of the youth in the Mediterranean region to contribute to peace, tolerance, and to rebuilding and building stronger societies. And obviously, Yusuf was talking about migration, was talking about the Mediterranean region, which is my home town, my home country. And so it was great to have that very personal connection to some of the things that you were discussing here with us today, Yusuf. And then obviously we took an institutional approach. We spoke to Dr. Sidra, and we really looked at the importance of making sure that the COVID crisis doesn't really effectively hamper efforts for everybody, for the youth in particular, obviously, to have access to education, and this very important reminder of how education is fundamental if we want to achieve the sustainable development goals, and in particular the goal, which is goal 16, which really looks at strengthening and building strong and sustainable institutions, without which obviously we know there is no peace, there is no coexistence, and there is no multiculturalism. And then obviously we were talking last but not least, and I learned today a very important Arab proverb that was the Dr. Isa. You were saying, can you repeat that proverb?
ختامه مسك. Is that what I said? The last is the
Yes.
misk, the musk.
Exactly.
The end of it is always the musk. Beautiful smell. A good smell.
With a beautiful proverb, obviously we ended with Hani. And Hani was discussing obviously the importance of soft power and how tolerance and coexistence can actually be an element of soft power, how really witnessed and embedded into the UAE values and Emirati values, and obviously talking about the Make-A-Wish Foundation sharing the details of this terrific organization. If you want to get involved, please do. It's really an opportunity for all of you to contribute to this terrific organization that works globally. And obviously, Hani represents the activities of the Make-A-Wish Foundation in the UAE. It's been really, really terrific to be with you here today. If anybody has something to add before we close, I would just maybe say very quick 30 seconds observations before we close this terrific panel discussion. Dr. Isa.
Yeah, first of all, this is not a proverb, it's part of Quran actually. So just to correct it.
Important clarification.
Yeah, but one of the things I like to say that technology can help actually fight bigotry, prejudice, intolerance, racism, and inequality. Spread love. Technology can spread love, respect, can spread equality, can spread happiness and peace. And then technology can bridge the gaps in culture, status, relationships, and differences. So I think it's good to go with technology. But the good thing about technology, the program is not one, it's a group. So it's very difficult to put in them, instill in them the bigotry. But generally speaking, yes, it will be biased if one programmer is there. Otherwise, the technology is unbiased.
Thank you, Dr. Isa. Closing remarks also for Yusuf Arug. Yusuf, you are next and you are on mute.
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat again?
Yes, if you want to leave us with some closing observations, just very quickly, some observations for today's panel.
Yeah, I just want to close it with a short sentence started in the Human Fraternity document, and invite all people who are watching us now to read the document and check it in the internet. In the name of Allah, who created all human beings equal in rights, duties, and dignity. Please read the document and try to implement it and include it in your future projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. Dr. Sidra, if you want to leave us with some observations and closing observations and comments from today's panel discussion.
I would like to share another thing in just 1 minute, that we recently launched a leadership incubator for young leaders. So this is an idea from His Excellency Dr. Salim Al Malik. For our youth need to be equipped in leadership skills to ensure not only a prosperous future for the member countries, but also it presents some original and creative ideas. So it gives training and capacity building to the most priority, and also to the Muslim youth leaders and from Muslim countries, those who are our members. So the idea to launch this initiative was to cultivate within the realm of its competence young people and equip them with the necessary skills to secure their professional future. So I would like to thank all of you. It has been a great experience. Many thanks to Mr. Antonio for inviting us. And I will pray that hope next time this, due to COVID pandemic, it was virtual. So I pray for all of us that inshallah we will get through this difficult time. And next time we will not meet virtually, rather we will invite you here in ISESCO. We have a wonderful platform, and we would like to invite all of you in ISESCO Rabat, and God will help us and will protect us, and we will get through this crucible very soon, inshallah. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Dr. Sidra. Inshallah, we'll get through this quickly and soon. Obviously, finally, I cannot see any of it in the screen. But if you're there, if you want to leave us also with some closing remarks.
Always. First of all, I would love really to thank each and every one of you guys. I really learned a lot from you today. I've been following the summit since morning, and I've been gaining a lot from all the speakers. And thank you so much for the organizers for organizing such an important and vital summit that it helps everybody everywhere. And Mr. Antonio, thank you so much also for yourself for being in touch with us, and for the time and efforts that you did to make this this session is one of the best sessions. We've been in each other by emails and Zoom calls, and I really would love to thank each one of you, Mr. Zuhaib, the organizers. You guys doing an amazing job, and hopefully I wish you guys all the best and hope that we can gain more and more from this summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hani, and thank you, Hani Al-Zubaidi, Chief Executive Officer of Make-A-Wish Foundation, Dr. Isa Mohammed Bastaki, who is the President of the University of Dubai, Youssef Aroug, who's the co-founder and President of the Mediterranean Youth Foundation for Development, and Dr. Sidra Tariq Jamil, who's the communication expert at the Department of Dialogue and Cultural Diversity at the Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, ISESCO. Thank you from me. Thank you for having me, and let's enjoy the rest of the conversation throughout the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for moderating this one.